Hi guys, Kelsey here, creator of the 𝘀𝗲𝗍𝗱𝗴 Soiree, a blog designed to help people like you create amazing weddings and events without spending a fortune. Okay, today I want to walk you through how to actually set up your wedding budget. If you watch nothing else, watch this video because it'll actually help set you up for success to plan the wedding of your dreams on a budget that's right for you. I encourage you not to play the comparison game, looking at other wedding blogs, planning sites, even other brides that might be planning a wedding at the same time as you, because a lot of them are going to tell you you need $30,000 or even $20,000, and that might not be right for you. It wasn't right for me, and that's what discouraged me the most when I started planning my wedding, is listening to other people's advice that just was super cookie cutter and wasn't tailored to my needs, mine and my fiance's priorities, and what we envisioned for our wedding day. The next reason I discourage you from looking at any planning sites is the way they tell you to allocate your budget is really based on trends. It's based on surveys of thousands of brides, taking an average of how they allocated their wedding budget, not necessarily based on how you and your fiance should allocate your wedding budget. So again, we're going to disregard all of that, and I'm going to take you through my 7-step planning process to budget for your wedding. Step 1, know your finances. Like I said, it's easy to play the comparison game, but for this step, you really need to look at you and your partner's own personal situation. There's 3 questions that I would suggest asking yourself. The first is there a chunk of savings that you and your partner already have set aside? You may think that you don't want to spend all of that, but chances are there's a good portion of that you could put towards your wedding. So figure out what that number is and what you're comfortable. Second, is there an amount you'd be comfortable saving out of your paycheck? So look at your finances, look at how much you need to spend in terms of expenses on a weekly or monthly basis, and that will allow you to understand, okay, could we be saving $100 a month to put towards our wedding, $200 a month, whatever that is, keep that in mind because that can be added to your wedding budget fund. And then third, this is a possible detractor actually, but I think it's important because obviously weddings aren't the end all be all. People have other goals that they're thinking about in their lives. So if you're considering planning a family or you want to put a down payment on a house in the near future, keep that in mind too, because you don't want to be in the boat where you spent all of your savings, all of your money on this one big day if you also have other goals in the immediate future. Step 2, have the budget conversation. I know this part's a little uncomfy, but it's very important to do this at the beginning. That way you know all sources of funding or support that you can expect for your wedding. And it doesn't have to be financial. It can be your mother-in-law wants to DIY your wedding favors. If you understand early on where any additional sources of funding or DIY support are coming from, you'll have a really good sense of your all-in budget. Step 3, crunch the numbers. At this point, you know any sources of funding you're going to get or DIY support, so it's time to really put pen to paper and get a sense of what that all-in budget's going to be. Step 4, know your limits. This is really just about getting on the same page with your partner and figuring out any preconceived notions you have about what's realistic and rational to spend on one day. Is $20,000 feeling a little too hefty for you? Talk it out and be on the same page with what you think is realistic to spend on your big day. Step 5, draft your guest list. There's a lot about your wedding budget that is hinging on this total number. Think size of wedding venue, anything that's a per person basis like catering, linens, chairs, all of that. So get an initial guest list drafted. It doesn't have to be final, but make sure you're including plus ones or any kids if you're planning to invite them. That way you have an all-in idea of what you can expect to be able to start budgeting. Step 6, set your priorities. This is all about what's important to you and your fiance. This is where that typical budget allocating tool, when you go onto different blogs and wedding planning sites, is not helpful in the least. The reason being is that's just based on averages and surveys of thousands of wedding couples. This allocation should be based on what you guys care about. So talk it out, figure out, is it the venue? Is it the food? Are you guys really into having the best caterer? Is it the entertainment? This was actually mine and my fiance's. A splurge was our band. We really wanted to have a live band, and that's where we put most of our money into. So really get a sense of where your goals and your priorities and what type of day you're envisioning, and that's where you're gonna spend the bulk of your budget. Step 7, do your research. This is all about getting a good sense of what average costs are in your area. So things like venues, photographers, DJs, all of those things are very different depending on the region you live in. So get a sense of how much things cost, especially those top priorities you just defined, so that you can fill those in first in your wedding budget. And that way you can leave things that aren't top priorities to the very end and see what you have left. You may end up having to sacrifice a little bit in those areas, but that's okay. Those weren't your priorities. I'm gonna actually drop a link down below to a great resource you can use as well. Money.com is a great place to start for looking into different costs in different regions. Okay, so we've ended the 7 steps. So just to recap, step 1, know your finances. Step 2, have that budget conversation. Step 3, crunch those numbers. Step 4, set your limits. Step 5, draft that guest list. Step 6, confirm your priorities. And last but not least, step 7, do your research. Last little thought here, this is a work in progress. You may find that as you start exploring venues or photographers, different vendors, that you want to shimmy a little there, shimmy a little here. That's totally okay. This is not a one and done. It's just a starting place. All right, friends, that's all I have for you today. If you liked this video and want to see more, definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I also want to just give a little plug for 𝗀𝗲_soiree.com. There's a ton of great resources on there for DIY wedding planning. Happy planning!